Marisa, it's such an honor. You've worked with Premier League footballers, countless billionaires.
I've worked with cricketers, boxers, pretty much anything you can think of.
When you notice a high-performing individual inching towards a lack of happiness, what do you tell them?
You have to have balance in your life. You push yourself like that, the body to punish you will just make you ill.
Can money buy happiness? People who are struggling to lose weight, they usually know the theoretical stuff, but they're not able to beat their own cravings.
Dieting has a 92% failure rate. The people who succeed will do what they do not want to do. But other people, they'd rather give up their dream than do what they don't want to do.
I'm also speaking for a lot of people my age. I don't think that I'm sleeping well enough, even though I'm trying to sleep well.
Never use the word trying, because trying implies failure. I had a client and the word she used, I can't stand it. I can't stand the traffic. I can't stand how normal my husband is. And she actually really had problems with her legs.
You said the brain being an alpha. Please teach us.
We'll do it with you right now. So close your eyelids and imagine you're going down 10 steps and you can feel your heartbeat. And now you are actually
Feeling like something healed on the inside.
Yeah. I was working with a kid whose hair started to fall out at 9. And she was being very bullied at school but couldn't tell her parents. Her hair falling out was saying to her parents, something is very wrong here.
It was protecting her.
The mind's going to create whatever is wrong with you to protect you, punish you, or to prioritize you.
This is something I argue about with my girlfriend a lot. She often ends up using the word hate.
Your words shape your reality. If you don't like your reality, change your language. It changes everything.
How do we gain what you and John share?
I have a lot of love. I have a great husband.
Would he be comfortable coming on screen?
Maybe.
Of course. We're individual, flawed people who happen to be in love.
Marisa Peer is one of the world's most reputed therapists. Her clientele includes billionaires, top athletes, EPL stars, cricketers, Olympians. She's helped countless high performers get even better at being high performers. So this episode is for all of you potential high performers. If you want to make 2025 a smoother and even more growth-oriented year, this episode is our gift from the world of the Ranveer Show to you. Listen to this episode along with a notepad and a pen. Take your notes. There's a lot of actionables that we spoke about. There's a lot of techniques that was spoken about with the legendary Marisa Peer. You're going to enjoy this episode. You're going to gain a lot of value. And if you listen to it with focus, this episode can help completely shift the direction of your life. For me, in many ways, this is one of 2025's most important episodes. That's why we're releasing it this early. I hope this one changes your life, but please take notes. It's a powerful one with Marisa Peer. Marisa, it's such an honor simply sitting in front of you and being able to pick your mind. It's an even bigger honor taking out your mind and all your actionables related to self-help and self-improvement to all audiences. Because we've got a lot of people in India who genuinely want to change the lives of their family members through their own journeys. You know, we're trying to understand generational trauma better. We're trying to get better as a generation for the sake of our families. And when I speak about India, I'm actually speaking about a lot of people from all over the world. So while billionaires have consulted with you and footballers have consulted with you, some of the world's top professionals have consulted with you, I'm glad we're doing this today.
Me too. I'm glad to.
Theme that came up repeatedly as I was studying for this podcast, which is that you said that each person who chooses to consult with you or chooses to be therapized by you teaches you something in return. Like you become a better therapist in return. You feel that's true even now?
Oh, yes. I mean, I've trained almost 20,000 therapists all over the world. And I say to all of them the same thing, like, this is the best therapy training ever, but you have another set of teachers coming up. Every client you see will teach you something. And in fact, of all the books I've written, I think I've written 7. I'm writing 2 more at the moment. I always thank my clients because when you're teaching, you're learning. So I'm teaching and learning, giving and receiving. And it's a very nice balance. But I'd say as a therapist, every client you see is going to teach you something.
And you've worked with people from a lot of different countries as well, right?
Yeah, so many countries. Yeah, so many countries and professions.
Would you say that the impact of money on people is the same pretty much all over the world? Is it very varied depending on their own stories?
I would say it's very different. If you lived in a rural area, money would probably be slightly less important than community. So I think it depends where you live and what you do and what your career path is. For some people, it's less important. For other people, it's very important. First of all, your relationship with money is pretty much set before you're 7 years old. So if you have a parent who says, this job's going to kill me, this will be the death of me, or I can't find the money, I don't know where the money's coming from, that will influence the child because they hear it over and over again. We tend to learn what we live. So if you're having difficulty making and indeed keeping money, go back and have a look at what your money beliefs are. And then other people, they want to make money, but they say things like fat cat and filthy money and rich bitch. And then they're very dismissive. They think people with wealth are cold and unspiritual. And they'll quote the scripture that says, the pursuit of money is the root of all evil. And it doesn't say that. It says the pursuit of money at the expense of everything else is the root of all evil. So a lot of people think, well, I'm spiritual, I shouldn't have money, or, people won't like me if I have money, or people will like me for the wrong reasons if I have money. So in order to create wealth, you have to first really find and unpick all your limiting wealth beliefs. So if you believe that wealth is bad, or that when you have money, you never know who your friends are, we know that 70% of lottery winners are totally bankrupt within 3 years, which is a huge figure. Why is that? Because they didn't earn it. They weren't familiar with it. And unconsciously, they got rid of all of it because of those two reasons.
How do you feel about money?
I think as long as you do good things with money, then you should have it. I think if you just keep it, that's a problem. But I think, I remember a client of mine who was not spiritual at all, but when he became phenomenally wealthy, he became very spiritual, began to pay for schools and pay for children's education. So the belief that spiritual people shouldn't have money is interesting, because if you make a lot of money with the aim to be spiritual as you created, that's a good thing. And for me, for instance, when I was a therapist working, I had some money, but when I became a much bigger therapist, much bigger name, and trained 20,000 of it, I had more money. And now I have free audios. You can go to marisapeer.com and take free audios on money blocks, love blocks, health blocks, success blocks, any block you can think of. I have a program that we're putting into schools that's completely free. So I didn't have money. I couldn't give away all these free, I couldn't film them, produce them, and give them away because I wouldn't have the money. So I think always do good things with money. Then it overcomes any guilt about, well, money is a dirty word, because it really isn't.
I'd love for you to answer the next question with a yes or no initially.
Okay.
And then I'll ask you to break it down.
Sure.
Can money buy happiness?
Yes.
Okay. Now let's do a step-by-step kind of answer on how money can buy you happiness.
I was reading about George Michael's sister, who 3 years after he died, actually died as well. And she'd inherited all his wealth. And I didn't understand why she didn't just go across to India and Africa. I've been to Zimbabwe and helped fund an orphanage, and that gave me great pleasure. So I think when you have a lot of money, go out in the world and see the difference you can make, building a school in a country, putting in water, putting in wells. So money can buy you happiness if your money buys other people's happiness. If you can say, okay, I'm lonely, I'm sad, but here I am, I'm sponsoring this child, I'm helping create a school, I'm doing something good, and other people are becoming happy because I have money, then that can't help but make you happy too.
Gotcha. You've worked with so many billionaires throughout your career. Do you think that one of the key sources of their happiness is their ability to help other people? And is that how they've become billionaires in the first place?
No, I see a lot of people who have inherited wealth, a lot of billionaires who inherit it directly from their parents, and they actually have a lot of guilt about money. And if they lose it, they have shame. Now they've got guilt because I inherited it, I didn't work for it, I didn't earn it, I inherited it, my father and mother worked to get this, and now I've lost a lot of it. Now I've got guilt and shame, and also very lonely. A lot of wealthy people are very lonely because imagine you own, I don't know, a shop, a store, a factory, a restaurant. You don't really go out with the staff every Friday night for drinks because you're the boss. So it can be very, very isolating when you have a lot of wealth. So you only hang out with people like you, but it can be lonely, guilt-driven and shame-driven too. So it's not always a happy place.
Gotcha. I'm trying to kind of approach this whole topic from the perspective of someone who's studying in university or someone who's just graduated and is a young professional
Right.
and doesn't have that much money to channel towards social causes. What's your advice to that person who is 20 years old, who's 25 years old?
You to do that later. No one expects you as you're trying to make it in the world and all the money you have is going into your studies and building a business. That's fine. You can wait until you've made it to do that, as long as that is your commitment that when I've made money, other people will benefit. So when you're thinking about making money, you need to write a list. Who will benefit from me having money? And the longer that list is, the more you get rid of the guilt and the shame of having money in the first place. So, but you don't have to do it on your way up. You can do it when you've made it, and that's perfectly okay.
Okay. This is a deeply generalized question that I'm asking you. But do you have a bit of a cocktail recipe for someone who's 22, who's a fresh graduate in this big bad world, who's
Right.
just beginning their life? What would you tell that young person? Imagine that they're your children.
I tell them several things. One is it's very hard to be successful at something you don't like. So go back and find your gift. We all have a unique gift. We have a unique skill set. And when you found that one thing that you love, go ahead and master it, because you might say, you know, I'm a very good writer. I'm a good speaker. I'm a good designer, but be even better. If once you've found your gift, I mean, we're so lucky we live in a world of social media. You can go on YouTube and you can find more and more courses and tutorials. So you need to perfect your gift. How can you monetize that? How can you perfect it? And when you've done those two things, you will have a career. But
Now we're going to make it a little bit more personal.
okay.
I think I found what I absolutely love doing. Okay, so in Indian spiritual thought, in the Bhagavad Gita, we have this term called Swadharma, which means the work that your soul was born in this life to do, which is usually a combination of some skills that come naturally to you. This is my Swadharma. I think I'm probably the most extroverted human that I've ever met. And I love asking these deep questions. I love meeting people from all over the world. But at age 31, there's a part of me that is feeling like I think all in all, I'm inching towards a lack of happiness.
You are? Oh, okay.
And I can't understand why. There's definitely a part of it where I love what I do so much that I kind of amp it up to extreme levels when it comes to the quantity of work. And I know that the obvious answer is, hey, take a break or dial it down a little bit.
Or, you know, in China, they say something to do, somewhere to go, somewhere to love. It's that triangle. So you need a career that gives you great joy. You need a relationship that gives you great joy. And then you need something else. And it has to be something just for you. And that could be collecting bees or butterflies or writing. But you need three things. So you'd need a wonderful career. But a wonderful career when you have no one to wake up with and come home to loses its luster very quickly. You need a wonderful relationship. But then you also need one other thing that is something that you love, and that could be painting, it could be running, it could be working out, it could be anything at all. But if you only have one of the three things, for example, you know, I'm working, I'm married to work, and I'm always working, but I go home alone, I wake up alone, and I don't have any hobbies or interests because it's just work, 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 that's very bad for your soul. You must have three things.
So a career that you enjoy, which I found.
Yes.
A relationship where you feel a lot of love.
Yes.
But you also need that third thing.
The third thing that's just something, that could be reading, could be studying, could be anything at all, could be doing yoga. But you need one other thing just for you.
How do you even know that third thing?
Well, the third thing is what makes you happy. For me, I love swimming. I love Pilates. I love yoga. I love reading. I love being around my friends. So we all know something that we like to do just for us. So let's imagine you've got a really busy, engrossing career, and maybe a family too, but you still have to have one thing. A lot of women say, no, I go to the gym because it's me time, or I go for a walk because it's me time, or I shut myself away and meditate because it's me time. So that one thing, you'll already know what it is because it makes you happy. But it's something that you'll do on your own and it will give you immense joy.
Okay, trying to think from my own perspective here because I do
Yeah, what is your me time?
I mean, I have a very deep spiritual practice,
Mm-hmm.
but on some level, I think my inherent personality is very warrior-like. So even with that, I have a sense of achievement.
Yeah.
As much as that spiritual practice heals me on so many different levels, I bucket that with my career at this stage of my life.
But you're very young and you're making it. You know, when you're on the way to massive success, it doesn't matter if you go, you know, I'm working 6 days a week, 7 days a week. On your way to success, that's really okay to be disciplined and dedicated. As long as you get there, you start to bring in other things like, I need to share my life with someone and I need to find something that makes my heart sing. But it's absolutely okay when you're on your way. It's like when you're studying for exams to say, you know, when I'm studying, I can't do anything but study. When I'm writing books, occasionally I will shut down everything and just write all day and all night. Everything else goes out the window, but that's not permanent. It's temporary. It's not permanent and it's not all pervasive. It's just for a little while. So I think anyone watching this goes, you know, I'm very ambitious. I'm building a business. It requires 14 hours of my day, 7 days a week. That's okay on your way to success. As long as when you've made it, you go, okay, now I can bring in the me time.
Understood.
Because you have to have balance. Nature requires balance.
You have to have balance between the three.
You have to have balance in your life. You know, without balance, you get burnout. So you must have balance of, you know, and the balance is when I go to work, I'm at work. I'm fully at work. I'm fully on it. I'm fully committed. When I go home, I'm not answering emails. I'm playing with my children. I'm talking to my partner. I'm lying on the sofa reading a book. So the balance is switch on when you go to work, but switch off when you go home. And nowadays, of course, we never switch off. Even on a plane, we can still be doing emails and taking calls. So the balance is I'm on, I'm off. I'm 100% in, but now I'm 100% not in. So we have to have balance in everything, giving, receiving, working, socializing. And many of us have no balance at all. And it causes a lot of illness.
Gotcha. Marisa, I want to speak about balance a little bit.
Okay.
Because this is one of those narratives that we get a lot throughout our 20s in terms of, I don't think life is living without a sense of work-life balance.
Yeah.
But there's also a few narratives from the entrepreneurial world primarily that say that work-life balance doesn't really exist. And I've tried to mull over that thought rather than...
And why do they say that? Why do they say it doesn't exist?
I mean, so there's a very iconic Indian entrepreneur called Narayan Murthy, and he's solely responsible for my country's IT revolution.
Okay.
So he actually contributed immensely to our country's modern history. But I think he made a public statement which was along the same lines recently, and he received a lot of flack for it. But in my eyes, I think what he was trying to say was the following. I think what he meant is that you need to have those extreme phases of work followed by perhaps extreme phases of rest.
You need to be single-minded, and that's normal. If you go to school, you work and then you have playtime. Every parent will say to their kid, do your homework, then you can have ice cream, you can go out to play. So it's okay to be single-minded on your way to success. If you're inventing something, you might be in your office inventing and again doing 16-hour days. When you finish the invention, you might go on holiday, you just rest. So that's okay. You know, the work-life balance doesn't have to be I work Monday to Friday and I rest at weekends. It could be I work 3 weeks and I rest for the 4th week. So we live in a different world. 9 to 5 doesn't exist anymore. So it's up to us to say, well, where is the balance? Is it 1 day a week? Is it 1 week a month? Is it 1 weekend? But you can be single-minded and very driven on your way to success. But you must have work-life balance. If you don't rest, nature will just make you ill. You know, I remember years ago when I was writing my first book, and I think the delivery date was the end of August. And my publisher said, hey, can we make it the end of July? I'm like, sure. But actually, I wasn't really ready. So I stayed up all night writing that book. And one day I woke up with the most awful headache. And it was my body saying, no, today you are going to lie in bed and do nothing at all. Because if you push yourself like that too much, the body takes over and says, here's an ulcer, here's a headache, here's a stomach ache. So if you don't find some balance in your life, your body will get sick in order to make you rest. And people say, you know, I was pushing myself to the limit, I had a breakdown, I fell apart, I got so ill. And I remember that when I woke up with that headache, I knew my body was saying, today you're having a day off. And it's a shame I had to give myself a headache to take that day off, but I really needed it. And when you take that day off, enjoy it. Don't go, oh my God, I could be doing work. I've got all these emails. Say, today I'm like a battery. You're a human being after all, not a human doing. You're supposed to be and not do. So not only should you take time off, when you take it off, don't do guilt. Say, I'm doing nothing and I'm having the best time. I'm doing nothing at all and it's absolutely lovely. It's really sad we often have to get ill to do the nothing.
That's nature kind of forcing you to stop.
Oh yeah,
right?
of course. And you shouldn't let it get to that state.
Right. I would love to know what you think of this theory where people say that every pain and every illness that visits your body
Mm-hmm.
is actually the manifestation of some kind of emotional thought, or that pain or illness is trying to teach you something and it won't leave you until you've learned it.
I mean, I think there's a lot of truth in that. When you get very sick, it's hard enough to be sick without someone saying, well, you created that. But there is no doubt that your thoughts are things. Every thought you think creates a physical reaction and an emotional response. So if you think, I'd kill for a day off, I'd give anything to have a day lying on my sofa doing nothing, of course mine goes, oh, well, that's a direct command. You want a day lying around doing nothing? Let me give you the flu. Let me give you chronic diarrhea. So we have to be very careful because our body does try to make our thoughts real. Every thought you think is not a thought, it's a blueprint. And your mind, your body, your psyche are working to make that blueprint real. So if your blueprint is, this traffic's killing me, my job is hell, this client is driving me crazy, this is just making me go insane, because your mind has to make those words real, then you are going to have a problem. So we have to be if your words shape your reality, if you don't like your reality, go back and take a look at how you're describing things. So again, there's no doubt that words can bring about illness, but every ill person on the planet hasn't become ill because of their language. About 70% have. Doctors will tell you that 70% of people turning up at the hospital have real illnesses. They are not caused by diseased organs. They're caused by diseased thinking. Wow. And that's very good news, because it's much easier to fix a diseased thought than it is to fix a diseased organ. But then we have to allow for people who get sick and things happen out of nowhere. So 70 to 90% of us.
Can I just pause this conversation to tell you that I'm loving speaking with you?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And see, the way I go further into my own podcasting journey is that if I see a thought, I have to let it out.
Okay.
So I'm going to say something. But from sitting right here, there's a part of me that feels like giving you a hug for everything you've done for so many of us all over the world.
Thank you.
So thank you for that, firstly. This is not even close to the end of the podcast, but there's a lot of deep gratitude I'm feeling. One, as a professional, to just be sitting in front of you, but two, just on a human level. I think people like you who are doing so much for healing, for the entire globe, this is real spirituality in my eyes. So pardon me saying this, but I almost feel like, you're a bit of an elder sibling of sorts to many people around the world.
And I like that. Thank you.
How do you feel about that?
People write to me and say, you're like my mum or my auntie. And I love that. I always wanted to have more children. So it's nice if people see me as their kind of maternal figure. I like that.
Yeah. That is your aura. Let's go further into this conversation about diseased thoughts and the aches, pains, and actual diseases of one's own body.
Sure.
I think this is a very important conversation for people in their 20s and 30s. Primarily because we're not taught this in school or college.
Of course.
And it's one of those life skills. You have to have the ability to look inside your own body and understand what's going on. I genuinely believe that your shoulder pain is not as simple as just being shoulder pain. That random backache is not as simple as being a random backache.
Well, doctors will tell you the source of the pain is very rarely the source of the problem. In RTT, I've trained 20,000, many of them in India, and we say, look, the presenting problem is not the problem. The problem the client brings is, here's my problem. There's another problem underneath. And we have an expression called what lies beneath. And that's really the real problem. It isn't the problem. So I'll give you an example. I was a little boy who had eczema all over his arms and legs. caused him a lot of pain. And when I was asking him a question, he was telling me that his mummy used to massage the new baby and he wanted that. And he go, Mummy, can I be massaged? No, darling, you're a big boy. But Mummy, I want that. No, it's just for the baby. And then again, he said, but Mummy, I want you to massage me. She said, no. And of course, he thought a thought, and the thought was, I wish Mummy would massage me. But you see, this is the genie. Your wish is its command. He thought a thought, I want Mummy to massage me. And so lo and behold, he got eczema, and she was massaging him, putting cream and wet bandages on his body every night because he thought a thought, and the mind made that thought real. So if you think of something sad, your eyes will fill up with tears. Think of something embarrassing, you might go bright red. Think of hunger, your stomach will rumble. Think of sex, you can become very aroused. And the most obvious is the placebo. What you think of a drug will affect you more than what's in that drug. So we already know that every day we think a thought and the body makes it real. And for him, that was so interesting. But the presenting problem, which is I've got eczema, the real problem is I want Mummy to spend time. She's now invested in that baby and I'm being left out and I want to feel I matter to her. So it wasn't really the eczema. It's she likes that baby more than me. I've been replaced. I'm not her baby anymore. So often when a client comes in, and we in RTT, we're very good at saying there's only 3 things wrong with you. Whatever is wrong with you, it's really 3 things. The mind's going to create eczema or migraines or irritable bowel or even panic attacks. It's going to protect you, to punish you, or to prioritize you. If there was an umbrella, it'd be all of those 3 things and everything else is underneath it. So it helps not to go, okay, well, I get headaches, I get breakouts, I get an upset stomach. Is that to protect me, punish me, prioritize? It's going to be one of those 3 things. And once you work that out, you're halfway to being over it completely. And here's the thing you can do, which sounds so weird. You're lying in bed with leaky gut and you have to go, what's great about it? The answer is, of course, nothing. But if you say, no, what is great about it? I was talking to an alcoholic. I said, what's great about it? He said, nothing. I said, no. If you had to answer that question, what is great about being an alcoholic? He went, well, no one asked me for anything. No one rings me up 2 a.m. and says, can you pick me up from the train station? No one asked me to drive them to work. No one asked me to come and look after their kids. No one asked me to lend them money because they know I'm an alcoholic. So actually, no one expects anything of me. And for him to be free of expectations mattered a lot. So it sounds a weird thing to say, what is great about this? People tell you, actually being ill is the first time I got to lie in hospital. People looked after me. Someone came and tapped my hand or get a vein up and I never get any touch. And suddenly I felt significant. You know the word significant. One of our primary needs is to feel significant, to feel important, to feel we matter. And for many people, they only get that when they're sick.
Wow.
In fact, if you're a child and you're not sure you belong in the world, if you're not born with parents who appear to love you, the first thing a child does to reassure them that they matter is to get sick. Because getting sick is the very next best thing to being loved. Suddenly your mother's getting gluten-free flour, buying you special cream, coping with your allergies. You think, oh, look at that. She might not love me, but I'm important because look what they're doing. So many children whose needs aren't met, the first thing they do is to become sick. And it's so effective, they often never, ever give it up.
Gotcha. Again, I'm going to be a little vulnerable here and speak about something that happened in my life earlier. I dealt with a lot of skin trouble, not so much in my teenage, but weirdly in my early and mid 20s. Too much acne. And I figured that it's definitely linked to a lot of the things I was eating. But as I keep mulling over that thought as I grow older, I also realized that I was a very angry person at that phase of life. And a big part of letting go of the acne was related to letting go of the anger.
Yeah, well, the skin is the largest organ in the body and it responds to your thoughts. People say, when you're madly in love, you glow. And when you're very unhappy, your skin looks drawn and tense. So we know that the skin responds to our thinking. It's the most powerful organ that does. So when you're stressed, you break out.
Yeah, I got to ask you something related to this same topic. One of the problems that I see with a lot of people my age is dark circles. And of course, it's related to your sleep hygiene and,
Sure. And
all the
hydration.
theoretical things about
Yeah.
right sleep. I think that's what one needs to prioritize.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even to a large degree, I do that as well. But even in phases where my dark circles start to fade, I don't think that I'm sleeping well enough, even though I'm taking the precautions. And while I speak for myself here, I'm also speaking for a lot of people my age.
Okay.
So it's kind of a topic I want to open up with you.
Okay.
We've done enough and more podcasts related to sleep hygiene in terms of sleep in a dark room, sleep in a cold room, stay away from screens, stay away from food near bedtime. What helps me a lot before sleeping is 15 to 20 minutes of stretching and 15 to 20 minutes of some spiritual practice like meditation or prayer.
Okay.
But I think I'm doing something fundamentally wrong in my thinking process through the day, which is not letting me enter deeper realms of sleep at night.
Okay.
The question I have for you is, you've worked with Premier League footballers, athletes. I'm sure you work with Olympic athletes. I'm sure you've worked with
do.
countless billionaires. When you notice a high performing individual who's not able to sleep well despite trying to sleep well and trying to do all the things right, what do you tell them?
Well, I tell them never to use the word trying, because trying implies failure. Trying to sleep is like saying, I'm going to try and pick up a pencil. You'd never say, I'm going to try and eat my lunch. I'm going to try and drink my water. So the very word trying implies, it's a misdirect. It implies failure. So when you say, I'm going to try to sleep tonight, that doesn't mean you're going to sleep at all. And in fact, the brain is very driven by words and what words mean. And our greatest fear as human is to fall. The fall, most of our fears come because of our thoughts. We think thought like, I'm scared of that mouse, or, oh, I don't like snakes. But actually the fear of falling is wired into us before we're born. So if you pick up a tiny baby, they do that. And they have a very powerful grip because they are wired to fear falling, even when they're born. That's why they have that startle reflex. So here's the thing, the human brain doesn't like falling. And if you go and went to the Burj and look down, your stomach will just go, what are you doing? Your legs will turn to jelly, because if you look down from a high building, that fear of falling is wired in. So here's the thing, you go, now I'm going to fall asleep. You've got into bed. The last thing you want is to fall out of that bed. We do another thing. We get into bed, we put on and go, I'm going to sleep, but you're not actually going anywhere. In fact, you're doing the opposite of going. You've turned off the light, shut the door, you got into bed. There's nowhere for you to go. So you have to change that word to sleep is coming to me. So it's really a matter of reprogramming the brain. And when your eyes roll up in that sleep state, you're going to alpha. And in alpha state, the brain is very programmable. So just stop talking about falling and going and say, every time I get into bed, sleep comes to me, descends upon me, stays with me. The other problem is a lot of people get into bed and think, they're all day, they're on screens, they're on the phone, they're watching, and then they get in and they go, oh, fine. And the brain goes, finally, I've got you now. Let's go over all the things you could have, should have, would have done, because it's the only time when you don't have a screen on. So then you have to say to the brain, listen, I'm choosing sleep, send sleep. I'm not planning to go over anything I could have, should have, would have done. This is the time to sleep. You're a bit like a battery, We know with our phone, we plug it in and leave it alone. We don't keep taking it out of the socket every minute to look at it. So just like a battery, you must recharge.
You've just kind of given out a bit of a sleep meditation here,
Yeah.
right? This is what
definitely.
it is.
Yeah.
That you lie down,
Mm-hmm.
try staying on the bed.
You lie down, you lie down, you roll up your eyes, like very important. You want to go into an alpha brainwave, which is the most programmable brainwave. And you get into alpha by looking up. You breathe in and out 3 times. On the third exhalation, you keep your eyeballs up and you just close the lids. Now you're in alpha and you can give yourself really good suggestions. But of course, the mind only responds to words that make a picture. So saying, I'm not feeling anxious is a silly thing to say, because the only word in there that is anxious. So you need to say things like, I'm so sleepy. I love sleeping. Sleep's coming to me. I'm enjoying 8 hours of beautiful, rejuvenating sleep. And while you're doing it, you try, I don't like the term, but be as still as you can. So let's imagine you're in bed, you're lying in bed, you roll up your eyes, but also keep your body still. Because when you're in the yoga position, the corpse position, you often tend to sleep because the body responds very well to stillness, a lot of strength in stillness. So be as still as you can, roll up your eyes. It does help to have a very, very dark room. I use sleep masks a lot because it's so bright in Dubai. and a pitch black room will reset your metabolic rate, it will reset your immune systems. There's a lot to be said. We forget that our ancestors didn't have light. They slept a lot. Now we sleep a lot less because we have so much light and light pollution. So it does help to be in the dark. But I can sleep in daylight anywhere because I've trained my brain that when I roll up my eyes on a plane or even lying on the sofa and tell my brain, send sleep to me. Now it always does.
So the more you keep doing the sleep meditation,
Mm-hmm.
the easier it becomes in the long term.
Yes, and also no baby says, hey, I can't sleep, it's too light, it's too warm, it's too cold. Babies sleep sitting upright. They sleep in your arms, they sleep in a chair, they fall asleep in a sandpit. Babies will sleep anywhere because they haven't learned that habit of worrying.
Marisa, growing up is a little painful.
Can be. Can be
be.
very painful. Depends who you grow up with, but yes, it can be very painful.
I think I'm still growing up, and I'm talking about growing up through life,
Sure.
not just growing up,
I know.
before college. This whole process of adulting is, on some level, now the thing is, I'm very careful about the words I'm using.
Good. That's a good thing. You see, your words shape your reality. If you don't like your reality, change your language. It changes everything, and it's so easy.
Yeah. I have a very long question to ask you about
Okay.
words and the effect on your reality,
Okay.
but we'll get to that question.
Okay.
Because first, I have to ask you further about a sentence that you just used. You said the brain being an alpha.
Yeah.
I would love for you to also give us some context on what other states the brain can be in.
Well, there's alpha, beta, delta, and theta. So there's 4 brain waves.
Okay. Please teach us.
Well, alpha is the good one because it's the one where you can program the brain to change. So, for instance, if you had a fear of birds, when you go into an alpha, something quite magical happens in that not only can you program the brain to think birds are perfectly normal and to be. So, for instance, I was working with a girl last week who has a terror of mice and rats. I said, look, you don't have to like them. The opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference. You don't have to like a rat. I don't like rats, but I can also be indifferent to them. Where could I be? So if I was in Africa, for instance, I was sleeping in this cave and I could hear little rodents running up and down the walls, but I didn't bother me because I could be indifferent. So the alpha brainwave is the brain where you can program.
You're the most coachable,
Most receptive
while
in
your
alpha.
brain is in
Yeah.
the alpha state.
Yeah. Mm.
And honestly, this whole theme of this conversation, the
Yeah.
data self-improvement and
Yeah.
healing,
Yeah.
it is actually about coachability.
Yeah. Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
So this is the most important state for the brain according to you?
Yes. Well, alpha and delta. Delta, again, is the deep. The other two don't really matter. Delta is a deep, deep sleep state. So those two of them, you want to get into alpha if you're giving yourself suggestions, into delta when you want to have deep sleep.
When it comes to like the alpha state, what's happening biologically in the brain?
You're going into the subconscious state. So if you look at a baby, as a baby goes to sleep, they start to roll up their eyes. If you're actually stroking a cat or a dog, they often become very, very relaxed. So when the eyes roll up, when you go to sleep, if you come along and lift up someone's eyelid who's sleeping, it's all white because the eyes have rolled up. So when you get it, so when the eyes roll up, you're going into REM, rapid eye movement. You only get that when you're dreaming or in hypnosis because you're in a subconscious state. And you want to be in the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is the powerhouse. The subconscious mind is always switched on. It's always on record. When you go, I don't know why I'm always angry. I have no idea why I can't stop eating cake. I don't know why I always self-sabotage or procrastinate, but your subconscious mind does know. So when you get into that subconscious, there's the answers. It's like a storeroom of everything. So you can go into the subconscious mind, and that's what RTT does. Someone will come in and say, I can't leave food. I'm unable to leave food. I'm a compulsive eater. And we go, well, first of all, no baby is born unable to. In fact, it's very hard to make babies overeat, almost impossible. They just bring it all up. So we know something already. You acquired that habit. So now we can get the mind to go back to when, because the brain always goes backwards. You might say, oh, I love the smell of lavender, reminds me of my grandmother. I love the taste of apple pie, reminds me of being at school. And I love those Barry White songs, reminds me of my first boyfriend. So music Sometimes we'll go back. The brain goes backwards to what something means.
Wow.
If I said, imagine you've got a little rag book. A is for apple, and I go, B is for ball, C is for cat. The brain's already gone back to when I was 2 to look at that little ABC book because it remembers everything. And you'll often find if you hear a song, you'll put the ending on it. So we know the brain goes backwards to what something means. So if somebody comes in and says, I can't leave food, you go, well, let's go back. But we're going back into the subconscious, not the conscious. The conscious has no idea. People wouldn't say, I don't know why I drink, why I ruin everything, if they knew, but the subconscious knows. So when you go back into the subconscious, it will give you the answer to these questions. And now you have the answer, you're halfway there, because what RTT does is find the pattern, understand the pattern, change the pattern, find the pattern of compulsive eating, understand it, but also change it. And some therapy is very good at finding it. Another therapy is quite good at trying to change it. But when you do them together, find it, understand it, change it all in one session, the results are profound and powerful. But we are using that alpha brainwave to go back and find out why. Now, I never say to someone, what's wrong with you? I say to them, what happened to you? What happened to you that made you act like this? You couldn't have been born like this. And no baby says, don't look at me. Babies like being the focus. So when someone says, I can't, I'm no good with people looking at me. I don't like attention. I can't make eye contact. That's not inherited, that's acquired.
Also, this thing you spoke about going into the brain,
Mm-hmm.
I think you mentioned this on the Diary of a CEO as well
Yes.
with Stephen. You said that a great therapist needs to be able to be a detective,
That's right.
go inside, change things
Yeah.
up.
A good detective. We a great therapist will wear 5 hats. And the first hat you put on is the investigator. See, a good detective will put pictures up on a wall and go, well, there's the crime scene, there's the victim, there's the weapon, and they're working out, they're gathering information. A good therapist will say, okay, until you were 9, you were the most normal kid, and then at 9, you started to have these night terrors, or you began to wet the bed, or you began to compulsively eat. What happened when you were 9? Is the detective is becoming fascinated by what went on. How did this 9-year-old kid suddenly have this problem? I was working with a kid whose hair started to fall out at 9. As it happened, she was being very bullied at school, but couldn't tell her parents, who'd saved up to send her to this private school. And she thought, gosh, I can't tell them that I hate it here. But you see, I love this expression. The feeling that cannot find its expression in tears or cause other organs to weep. Her hair falling out was saying to her parents, something is very wrong here. And when you can't open your mouth and say it, the body will take on that role for you. So often the body is expressing things.
Gotcha.
And so many, many times, conjunctivitis, leaky gut, irritable bowel, skin conditions, so the body's saying, people say, I've got this angry rash. Oh, it's irritable. I've got this irritable. I've got this screaming, I've got this thumping headache. They're saying already this is connected to anger. Why would you use the word screaming, angry, and thumping? So often clients, even in telling you, unwittingly telling you, I've got this really angry rash. Something's getting on my nerves. So the first hat is investigate what happened, when did it happen, and how did what happened affect my client? Because we're all different. And the second hat is now we're going to interpret how what happened affected that client, because it doesn't affect everybody, but it affected this one. And now we're going to interrupt the belief system, massively interrupt. And then we're going to do the final, we're going to install a brand new belief. So I worked with someone who couldn't stop eating, was extremely overweight, very unhappy. And he remembered being a premature baby who almost died because he was so little. Every time the mother fed him and he brought out the milk, she would cry hysterically and get really upset because he's going to die. But when he began to keep the milk in, she went, oh, he's such a good eater. Look, he's getting so fat and it's all lovely. So his mind had an interesting belief. If I don't eat, it upsets people. My mother gets frantic. When I eat, she's very happy. I'm a good boy. So I'm eating to get that feeling of happiness. And if I don't have food, I get the feeling of anxiety. So we've investigated and we've interpreted. Now I've got to interrupt it. It's one thing to say, oh, look, we've got all of this stuff, but you now have got to change it. Now we have to interrupt that pattern. And the final thing is, after we've interrupted, is to give them a new message to start to say, when you love leaving food, it thrills you to leave food. You actually are much more of a fruit person, an ice cream person. You don't really like all that junk. You like real, healthy, nourishing food. So when you do those things together, find the pattern, understand it, but change it. But you have to involve the subconscious mind, because that's where you get the answers from.
Gotcha. I think the overarching conversation was related to the different states of
Yeah,
the mind.
the different states, yeah.
We were talking about alpha, which is where you're the most coachable.
Yeah, the most coachable.
Now, you mentioned something very interesting. You said that turn your eyes up.
Yeah.
It sends your brain into alpha.
It puts you into an alpha. Yes, if you look up, you look up, you're going, if you do that now, look up, open your eyes, look up. You see how you're getting rapid eye movement. So you're going into alpha straight away.
Wow. Can I add like a spiritual bent?
Please do.
Have you read the book, The Autobiography of a Yogi?
No, I haven't.
But it was Steve Jobs'.
Oh, yes, we have that. I did actually read some of it. I bought that for my husband. I found that book quite hard to read.
Yeah, it's very heavy.
Very heavy. That's why I haven't finished it.
In India, we believe that there's lots of books that you read in your own life.
Yes.
But there's some books that you read in your life where you think you're reading the book, but in truth, the book is reading you.
Yeah.
And especially with this book, it's written by one of the most powerful sages that's ever come out of India. Reading that book took me time. It took me like a year to read that entire book.
Wow.
There's a way I went about it. Like I put it down if I wasn't able to read it. And I picked it up only when I was seeking an answer. And this happened when I was 24.
Okay.
At 22, I had an ayahuasca experience as well. And these two experiences kind of helped me in parallel. I felt like the ayahuasca switched up a lot in my head, and reading this book switched up a lot in my head. At the end of this book, I was seeking out more. So I Googled the sage's name, and I searched for his centers of teaching in my own city, which is Mumbai. And it turned out to be 200 meters away from the house that I'd grown up in.
Isn't that funny?
So
There it was.
I went in there. I signed up for their self-study based course. And the first meditation that they teach you in that course is related to simply sitting down, turning your eyes up, and just focusing here.
Of course, the third eye.
You said that the alpha state is the most coachable phase of life.
Most programmable brain state, yes.
So can someone just sit at home, keep the back straight, look up, they end up seeing that color purple.
Oh, you don't even have to do it that. You can just literally sit at home, roll up your eyes, breathe in and out 3 times. You can do it right now. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, hold it, breathe out, breathe in. And on the third exhalation, you keep your eyeballs up, you close the lids down, drop your chin, mentally go down 10 steps, and you can go 10, 9, 8. When you get to the bottom, you're in a state where you can give yourself amazing suggestions. However, you have to know how to give yourself suggestions. So saying, I'm not thinking about Cadbury's chocolate, what are you thinking about? If I said, I'm not thinking about Cadbury's chocolate, what are you thinking
Cadbury's
about?
chocolate.
Of course, if you're not thinking about Ben and Jerry's ice cream, what are you thinking about?
The ice cream.
So it isn't just the state, it's what to do in that state. And if you want to give yourself suggestions, you need to know a couple of things about the mind. Here they are. It only works in the present tense. You can't say, next year I'll be a millionaire. Next year I'll be in love. Next year I'll be happy, because the mind doesn't know what next year is. You have to say now, right now, immediately, even if it isn't true. I'm becoming super wealthy right now. I'm attracting wealth right now. I'm attracting wealth now. You have to add the words now, right now, this minute. Even if you said the broken leg is healing, you still got to go, you can't say in 9 months, you got to go right now. So it must be in the present tense. The brain is very poor at future pacing. It doesn't know what the future is. It only knows about now.
You're saying go inside your head and then say that, hey,
Don't even have to go inside your head. Just go into that state and start giving yourself suggestions. So a good suggestion would be, I find it easy to speak to people. I like them and they like me. I feel comfortable talking to people. That's a good suggestion. It's framed very positive. It's not, oh, I'm not worried people don't like me. It's, I find it very easy to speak to people. The mind doesn't get no, not, don't. So saying, I don't feel nervous is really saying I feel nervous. I don't want to scratch my nose means I very much want to scratch my nose. I'm not worried about failing that exam means I'm very worried. So you have to frame it in the present tense. in the present tense. Use very exciting words. They must make a picture. The mind only responds to words that make a picture. And the words in front of words amplify. So if you said, I'm a great speaker, you could say, I'm an amazingly great speaker, phenomenally great speaker, an outstandingly great. So you want to amplify it. We'll do it with you right now. So look up with your eyes open. Breathe in, breathe out. Keep your eyeballs up, because every time you blink, deep hypnosis is coming upon you. And the third time, keep your eyeballs open, look up. And this time, keeping your eyeballs up, close your eyelids down, close them all the way down. You can see that REM, rapid eye movement, already taking place. Drop your chin just a fraction. And imagine you're going down 10 steps, and you can just see your feet moving on to step 10. And you can feel your feet taking step 9. And maybe you can see your feet taking step 8. And as you take step 7, you're going deeper with every sound you hear. You're taking steps 6 and 5, going deeper with your heartbeat, with your breathing, with the sound of my voice. You're taking step 4 and 3 and 2 and 1. And now you are actually in an alpha brainwave. And I want you to think of something you really require and give yourself a suggestion, but you've got to frame it. It's got to be positive. It's got to be in the present tense, and put some words in front of the words. So think of something. You might want to say, my podcast is internationally successful because I'm a brilliant, gifted, genius podcaster. Something like that would make perfect sense to your mind. And I do whatever it takes to remain a brilliant, genius, gifted podcaster. And when you finish giving yourself suggestions, just mentally take 10 steps up and open your eyes. So you have to kind of be the director of your own brain. You have to give it very, very clear instructions.
Okay.
But that's not complicated, is it?
It's not.
And if everyone did that in schools, what a difference that would make to kids if they all taught them to do that.
That felt heavy in a very pleasant way.
Yeah. Yeah. Heavy in a good way.
Yeah, heavy in a
good.
very pleasant.
Good.
Feeling like something healed on the inside.
Yeah, well, it probably did. What healed on the inside was doubt, because you see, you started to program your mind positively. The mind can't go in two lanes. His confidence, his inadequacy, his fear, his excitement. You can't go into fear and excitement. You can't go into positive and nervous. So the brain can't go into two lanes. The mind cannot hold conflicting thoughts or conflicting beliefs. So you went into one lane, and when you're in that one lane, you couldn't go in the other lane. So you focused your mind on the one good lane, and what you were doing was banishing the lane of doubt.
And anyone can do this
Anyone
kind of an
can do
exercise
that.
at home.
They can, and they should, over and over again.
I think they just need to write down the sentence that they think to themselves on a piece of paper.
Right, and then look at it and think, does that make sense? Am I saying, oh, I want to be noticed? Well, now I've got a nervous twitch. So what do I want to be noticed for? I want to be famous, but what do you want to be famous for? I want more money. Well, I've got $20 in my bag. I want great love, but for how long? So you're saying I want love. You want love for more than an hour, don't you? So you have to say, I want to meet my soulmate. Our souls collide. We're together forever. We develop this beautiful love, and it lasts our entire life. Now, that's very clear to the brain. But if you go, I want love, I mean, who do you want love with? How do you want love? How long do you want love for? You've got to be very clear. And our problem is because we don't not clear. We say, I want love. I want attention. You know, so many kids, you know, I often, when I'm working with children, I literally have an Aladdin. So I come out and rub the lamp and make a wish. You know, they go, I wish I wouldn't fail maths. I wish I wouldn't be lonely and have to eat lunch by myself. I wish I wouldn't be bullied. So you see what you're wishing for. You're wishing for the wrong thing, because now the gene is going, okay, how can I stop being bullied? I know. I'll give you a stomachache. Now don't go to school. Now you can't be bullied, but you need to say, Jeannie, I wish to be someone who's so friendly. All the kids like me. I'm forever going to sleepovers and parties because people like me. And I like them, but I also like myself. So the kids that I wish I wouldn't fail maths, you need to wish to be, hey, I have a great mind. I understand maths. I'm getting better at maths every day. I'm a maths genius. Much better to wish for that, because the brain's job is to make your wishes real.
to further understand this same chapter that we just
Yes.
spoke about. Because I think that this is a very key takeaway from this whole conversation. We're giving out a very powerful actionable here. One of the most common problems that we see in India when it comes to the world of health and fitness, one of the most common problems from this world is what people call weight loss, which in truth is fat loss.
Yeah.
Whenever we're doing any fitness based episode, everyone actually just wants to hear
Sure.
some nuggets about fat loss.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've been creating content for almost 10 years. And what I've figured is that with people who are struggling to lose weight, they usually know the theoretical stuff, but they're not able to beat their own cravings for
Yeah.
cake or soda or, all the things that
Sure.
we know are not good for one's health. So I would love for you to give a positive affirmation or a sentence related to the ability to kind of discipline your own mind.
Yeah. Well, first of all, do not use that word loss. All pain is linked to the word loss. I mean, if you close your eyes, there's nothing good that you could lose. You can lose your mind. You can lose your job. You can lose your passport. You can lose your phone. You can lose your health. So if you ask the brain what's good to lose, it'll go nothing. There's nothing good you can lose. It doesn't go, oh, there's one good thing. Wait. So the brain is very clear, all loss is bad and all gain. After all, what do you gain? You gain a diploma, you gain a scholarship, you gain wealth, so the gain is good and loss is bad. And the brain is very literal. Gain is good, loss is bad. So if you closed your eyes, close them now and think of the word loss. I'm going to say loss, losing, loser. I want you to tell me what comes into it as I say the word loss, losing, and loser. Loss, losing, loser. What do you think of?
A sad face.
If I said shedding, what would you think of? Shed, shedding, shed.
Freedom.
And if I said dropping, what would you think of?
Lightness.
And if I said reducing, what would you think of? Reduce, reduced, reducing.
Self-doubt.
Okay. So the word loss is a painful word. So one of the things is don't talk about losing. It's I'm dropping weight, I'm shedding a few pounds, I'm discarding 5 pounds, but don't say loss, because whatever you lose, you want to, people who say, oh, my football team lost again, but they'll win next year. People go loser, or they go, we lost that client and it was a terrible thing, but we're going to get them back. So we're wired not only to hate loss, but to try and get back everything we think we've lost. People in jail or people at school say they can't lose face. So don't use the word loss, and then understand that nature is very clever. The things we're doing now that are making us very overweight, the very things that kept us alive, finding sugar, going back. When no one says, I can't stop thinking about celery. But if you have some ice cream in your fridge, you'll go back for more, because in primitive times, if you found honey or mangoes, you go back for more because it was rare. And then this craving, the things we crave are half fat and half sugar. There's no food in nature that's half fat and half sugar except for breast milk. You can have fatty stuff like olives and sweet stuff like mangoes, but they're never combined. So the brain again goes back. When you're a little baby and you cry, your mum gives you this milky, creamy stuff. Everything's right with the world. When you're having a bad day, you think, I need ice cream, I need pizza, I need mac and cheese, I need bread, because the brain is going back again to what worked as a child. And only a few hundred years ago, the biggest killer in the world wasn't disease, and it wasn't war, it was hunger. And to this day, we're scared of hunger because it used to kill us. And so when you're hungry, you think, okay, I'm hungry, but I'm not going to eat anything because I want to lose weight. After a while, you just end up eating everything. So if you feel hungry, you should eat and go, okay, I'm hungry, I need to eat a little bit, but I don't need to eat a lot. And so rather than get into this dieting mentality, because dieting has a 92% failure rate. I mean, there's more gyms, more health clubs, more calorie information than ever before in the world. And what else is there more of? More overweight people. So we know something. Oh, having the food calories written on the food and the gyms, it seems to be not working. So you have to go back, and what does work is to reconnect with your body, see your body as the most priceless, mind-boggling thing you'll ever own in the whole world, and decide, don't say, what do I want? Say, what does my body want? See, people go, oh, I should have the salad, but I want the fries. But they're both wrong. What does your body want? Probably doesn't want the salad or the fries. It wants something else. So whenever you're going to eat, say, what does my body want? I know what I want. I want pizza, mac and cheese, and Ben and Jerry's. But what does my body want? Because we're so disconnected from our bodies that we eat mindlessly, we eat junk, we eat terrible, terrible food. And of course, the food industry loves that. I think we're invited to eat junk food up to 600 times a day. I mean, there really isn't any adverts for peas or celery or carrots. So it's very hard that we're wired at this very early age to eat badly. Then our brain gets very high on all the chemicals in food. Chemicals are addictive, coffee's addictive, sugar's addictive, the opiates in milk are all addictive. However, it only takes the brain about 10 days for the taste buds to change. So if you took sugar out of your coffee, of course you'll miss it. After a month, you say, I can't believe I drank that stuff. It's disgusting. I can't believe I ate all that sugar. I drank Diet Coke every day because the taste buds change very quickly. Your body asks for what you give it all the time. So if you start drinking water, you very quickly think, oh, I can't work out without water. If you start eating vegetables, say, no, I crave vegetables. So we crave what we have all the time. Just a little discipline to give yourself. But as you do it, don't go, oh my God, I love it. I love the apples. I'm so into the pears. I love vegetables. My favorite thing in the world is a lovely vegetable curry. Tell yourself that, because mind is very easy to program and lie to. You know, I have a book called Tell Yourself a Better Lie. And it says, I really believe in lying, cheating, and stealing. Lie to your brain, cheat fear. Steal back, lie to your brain and cheat the food companies of giving you all this sugar and steal back the normal appetite you were born with, which was not for sugar.
Lie, cheat,
and steal.
And steal.
Every day of your life.
Love that.
I'll give you a much better life.
Love that. I also think that's one of the core aspects of your work. And I don't mean lying, cheating, and stealing.
No.
I mean this ability to program
the brain. Yeah, make your brain your best friend. Your brain should be your biggest ally and your biggest cheerleader. And it is, if you can just reason with it. Hey, brain, every time I go out, I end up eating cake, but I'd really like to eat blueberries. I really want to look good, because whatever you want to say yes, you've got to say no to. If I want a flat stomach, I've got to do the plank and sit-ups all day long. And if I go, oh, I hate these sit-ups, if I go, hey, I love working out.
Marisa, my intention with this whole episode is all about making you and your mind and your learnings accessible to people all over the world for free. I think that's a very key part of what we're doing. We gotta speak about words. And we've spoken about words throughout this conversation. But again, from a very practical perspective, this is something I argue about with my girlfriend a lot. She often ends up using a phrase that contains the word hate. Oh, I hate this particular kind of food, or I hate this particular activity. And the interaction I have with her is, hey, don't use the word hate. I think if we put that word out into the world, you kind of end up hating certain aspects of yourself as well.
Yeah.
Fair thought?
Yeah, better to say dislike. Dislike is a less emotional word than hate. So what you want to do in life is maximize the positive and minimize the negative. So you wouldn't go, I hate it, go dislike it. It's not my thing.
But from a very everyday perspective, you do definitely believe that the words that leave our mouths eventually become our thoughts.
Sure, words are magic. That's why it's called spelling. So yeah, the words that, our words create everything. If you say, I can't stand that. I had a client who actually really had terrible problems with her legs, and the word she used was, I can't stand it. I can't stand the weather. I can't stand the traffic. I can't stand how messy my kids are. I can't stand how annoying my husband is. And she literally had problems with balance. And a lot of people say that makes me sick, and I'm so sick of that. And they often have sickness. So it sounds almost too simple.
Would you say that the actionable is to first begin by observing your own words?
Yeah, definitely. And ask other people which words you use all the time and change them.
Which is where a relationship can help one as well.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, just observe. Observe, and then don't beat yourself up. Observe, and then just change those words.
I think it's one of the most underrated benefits of having a good, stable, long-term relationship.
Yeah.
That you do get a bit of a mirror.
Yeah.
You do understand yourself more deeply.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd probably say observe your own words and only use extremities when you're using them positively.
Yeah.
If it's a negative extremity that you're taking your words to, substitute it with
Yeah.
something much softer.
Yeah.
Fair
Sure.
to say?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to break away from this conversation a little bit and
Sure.
take it into another kind of podcast realm.
Okay.
You don't have to take names, but you've worked with Premier League footballers,
I
right?
have.
Which other sports have you dealt with?
I worked with a bobsleigh team, the rifle team, the rowing team at different Olympics. So I've worked with footballers, cricketers, rugby players, boxers, darts players, pretty much ice skating, pretty much anything you can think of.
Got you. So you named all the sports.
Mhm.
What other popular professions have you ended up working with?
Singing, acting, writers, pretty much everything. CEOs, people who can't present, even politicians who find it. I've had a few who can't orate correctly. So
Got you.
it's easier to say what I don't work with than I do, because I work with pretty much everything.
Fair to say that you work with high performers from different fields?
Yeah, I work with a lot of CEOs, a lot of billionaires.
And all these people are visiting you to perform even more highly.
Yeah, they visit me for many reasons. So they might have writer's block. A great writer might say, I've got writer's block. A billionaire might say, you know, I'm now fearful of investing. My last investment didn't work. Or I'm very lonely. I have all this money. But the very fact that I'm a billionaire is very isolating. So it just depends on the client. But they all have the same problems, really. And the problems are, I'm not enough. I'm different, and you are different when you're a billionaire, and different means it's hard to connect, or what I want is not available to me. So whatever a client's presenting from me is what lies beneath is I'm not enough, I'm different, so I can't connect, or what I want is not really available to me.
So people visit you when they face some kind of a roadblock?
Yeah, and they can be physical problems, such as I get headaches, I get irritable bowel. You know, I know that I have maybe they'll say it's autoimmune, where the body is attacking itself. They may have emotional problems, such as I can't find love. I've got all this wealth, but no love. Or I've got all this success, but I feel like a fraud. I've got all of this, and I have tremendous guilt. There's all kinds of guilt about having stuff.
You know, all those sports that you named,
Yes.
I'm assuming that most of these people are in their 20s or their early 30s.
Yeah.
We also live in the age of social media, where the
Mhm.
average person ends up comparing their lives to the
Of
lives of
course.
famous people.
Yeah.
It could be content creators, sports stars, etc. You look at someone's life and you think, hey, that seems like a perfect life. So I would love for you to kind of break down that sentence.
Well, you know, it's not a perfect life when you're in the public eye all the time, because the very thing that makes one person like will make one person dislike. Because if you're in the public eye and you go ahead and you read the comments, it can be very hurtful. So a lot of people, I would tell my clients, don't read the comments. Don't read them. Just ignore them. Don't let it in. So, you know, when we're born, we have one driver, and that is find connection, avoid rejection. Of course, if you're famous, then you might find some connection, but you also find rejection, and you tend to be alone because it makes you so different. So envying someone who's made it, they often envy you because you're living a normal, simple life. And it's amazing how many people who've made it say, actually, if I could choose my life again, being rich and famous, I'd be rich, but I'd never be famous. And my clients are rich and famous, almost never want their children to be famous. So there is quite a high price to be paid for fame. Your life is never really your own again.
You know, at this stage of life, I don't think I'm truly happy. And I'm trying to change that.
Mm-hmm.
I would attribute the lack of complete happiness to
Yeah.
fame a little bit for
Yeah,
sure.
of course.
But when I say that I miss anonymity to
Mhm.
the average
Yeah.
person, they almost never get it.
Yeah. And you know, people at the end of their life will always tell you the thing that makes them happy is their relationship with them. No one says, hey, I wish I'd spent longer in the office. I should have made a few more millions. They all say, I wish I'd been home more, wish I'd seen my kids grow up. Because what makes us really happy is, without question, our relationships with other people. We're living in a world where, you know, you get into a taxi, there's no driver, the we go. You go to the bank, there's no teller. You go to the store. I was in an airport recently and all the staff were robots. It was very peculiar. So although we know that human beings are hardwired for connection, we're becoming more and more disconnected. And that makes people very, very unhappy.
Gotcha. One of the great joys of podcasting has been meeting psychologists
Mm-hmm.
and meeting neuroscientists, and then trying to understand both their worlds and silently comparing them.
Okay.
I think that one of the themes that comes out of both these kinds of guests is neuroplasticity,
Yeah. Neuroplasticity.
right?
Sure.
Basically, one's brain is like a tree,
Mm-hmm.
and it keeps changing as life moves
Yeah.
forward.
Well, plastic, of course, people think plastic means to mold. It's a Greek word. It means to mold. So neuroplasticity means that the neurons are molding as you change your thoughts. The brain is rewiring itself all the time. And that's a very, very good thing.
Now, parallelly, I love the world of sport, especially cricket and football. But I've noticed that everyone watches these sports for different reasons. The reason I watch sport is to gauge stories of younger athletes. I love seeing someone's trajectory. I love seeing what happens in people's lives. And then, depending on where they end up, either as a mega success or a medium success or even a failure in some cases or a high potential failure in some cases, I love kind of rewinding and understanding what's gone wrong.
Sure.
So now I want to ask you about the neuroplasticity of people who get it right. And then I want you to speak a little bit about the neuroplasticity of people who get it wrong, especially those who began with very high potential.
Well, if you look at athletes, they do what they do not want to do to get to where they want to be. So an athlete will get out of bed at 5 a.m., scrape the ice off their car and go training. They'll run, they'll push themselves to a limit. And people who are successful do that. People who succeed will do what they do not want to do to get to where they want to go. They'll stay up all night researching. They'll do a lot of work. But other people, they'd rather give up their dream than do what they don't want to do. That comes back a lot to weight. Again, people say, I couldn't live without ice cream. I'm not prepared to live without cake. Life is so boring without takeout. So athletes are very interesting because they do what they dislike pretty much every day to get to where they want to be. And that all the time, that is neuroplasticity. They're wiring themselves to challenge themselves, to run faster, to jump higher, to train every day. And they talk to themselves. They never go, oh my God, this is where. And they go, no, I want the medal. This is what I want. They really direct their mind. If you look at Marines, when they're running, they sing. They send a message to the brain, oh, you're running and you're singing. I guess you must like it because you wouldn't sing if you didn't like it. So they always have this feedback going on. So athletes feed back to their brain all the time, I want the pain. I want the endurance. I want the stress. I want it. I've chosen it. And I've chosen to feel great about it because I want that medal. And that's what you say to the brain. Okay, I want this. If I want a baby, then I accept I'm going to be getting up. But if I want a really great career, I accept that I'm going to have to go to work and put. If I want to be the boss, I'm not going to take the same holidays as my staff. So whatever you require is going to require something of you. Some people say, oh no, that's too hard and I don't want to do it, which is fine. Not everybody wants that. But whatever you want, whatever you requires something of you, and you must be prepared to pay the price to go and get it.
So with the athletes who begin with a lot of high potential but don't end up making it big, do you think that it's the loss of this exact ability?
Well, sometimes, no, sometimes, I mean, I have a great friend who was a high-performing athlete, but he just never quite made the grade. So sometimes, it can be hard. They get injured. They start very young. They're away from home all the time. They're away from their family. So some of them just find it too pressured and they say, no, I don't want it. And sometimes they just, the grade is very high, to make it. I was working with someone who was training to be a football player for Chelsea, and they said you have a 2% chance in the youth team of going through. 2% is very low odds, but it's often the price some people have to pay is just too high.
I follow the work of Dr. Andrew Huberman pretty closely.
Okay.
And he speaks about this part of the brain. I think it's called the anterior cingulate cortex. And it can be visualized to be a bit of almost like a muscle inside your brain, which gets strengthened every time you force your brain into doing an activity
Of course.
that it doesn't want to actually do.
Yeah.
For the sake of your own growth.
Yeah.
The kind of tricky aspect here is that if you eventually start enjoying that activity, then the growth of the anterior cingulate cortex stops.
Yeah, sure, of course.
So it only grows when you're actually seeking
You
discomfort.
only really grow when you do what you don't want to do. That's where growth comes from. Doing something you don't want to do are not familiar with that, learning a new language, learning a new skill. We should always be growing, but you can only grow doing something new or different or even uncomfortable.
The place I'm going to with this question is again this chapter of balance, because how do you teach a young person that? I think especially when it comes to our country, there's a lot of people who know that you need to work really hard. I think it's a part of Indian culture, and lots of people are burning themselves out.
Mhm.
And you spoke about the triangular approach, that you need to have
Yeah.
love and then something to
Yeah. But you don't always have to work harder. Sometimes you have to work smarter. So, for instance, one of the things we teach is management. And if you have a business, you should always employ people who are better than you. Buying someone else's brain power is a great use of funds. So a lot of people think, I can't have someone on my team who's better than me. And that's a mistake. So sometimes you have to work smarter, not harder. Work smarter at what you're good at and let other people do what they're good at.
You've also worked with musicians and actors, right?
Mhm.
I think at least the musicians and actors that I've met through my show
Mm.
look at themselves as artists.
Yeah, they are artists.
Right? The question to you firstly is, what is an artist in your eyes?
Well, artists are very fragile creatures, first of all. Artists are very fragile. You'll see many artists who become addicts because they have a creative mind. Because if you're a creative person, you're a highly suggestible person. It's both your greatest gift, but also not, because it only is a gift if you give yourself the right suggestion. Many actors say, I wasn't very good, or that person's better, or there's always someone younger, taller, coming up behind me. So the self-destruction of talent is how do you try to talk to yourself? And many actors and musicians are very, very hard on themselves, very hard on themselves.
About doing better?
There's a very famous story about Laurence Olivier. I think he was playing Hamlet, and he was playing it at the theatre in London. And when he finished, he got 11 standing ovations. People were crying. It was so amazing. And the press ran to his dressing room. He said, don't write about that. This is why he said, I don't know where it came from. If you write about that and I can't do it tomorrow, you'll disappoint people. That's the doubt. Because it came from him. But he said, but I don't know where it came from. Of course it came from you, but he felt it was a fluke, that this particular day he was on fire, but he might not be that way tomorrow. So it's the self-doubt that creeps in, and actors and any artists are very good at doubting themselves.
Would you place content creators in the same bracket?
Yeah, anyone who's writing. Writing is another art. Writing, designing, drawing, creating, it's all a form of art. So yes, anyone who's writing content can be their worst enemy instead of their best friend.
Right? I also think these are some of the most celebrated jobs in the modern day.
Sure.
Right?
Well, content is a great thing to create. If you can do it, not everyone can do that.
The price one pays is a lot of self-doubt.
Yeah, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry that it's not good enough. And even when it is good enough, you can write one piece of content and then say, well, what if that's the best I ever did and I can't get any more than that?
Yeah. Do you know who Mr. Beast is?
Of course, everyone knows Mr. Beast.
I had him on the show, but what I got from that interaction is that he truly enjoys his work. That's why he's Mr. Beast. But I don't think I've seen anyone who is that dedicated to his process of creativity.
Yes, he's dedicated. And dedication requires to narrow down and put it in front of everything else. And we can't all do that.
Honestly, I've also not seen anyone who's pushed themselves to the limit that he's pushed his own mind at that young an age.
Sure.
But effectively, you mentioned something very interesting here. You spoke about that example where the artist who was being applauded said that, hey, I don't know how I did that.
Yeah.
And that was from a place of a flow state.
Yeah, flow state. And and we can't always get into that flow state the next time.
I think, at least this works for me. I think every artist is unique, and you have to subjectively figure out how you can quickly get into your own state of flow.
Yeah. Sure.
And that's how you actually sustain your own art in the long term.
Yeah.
Along with a lot of conversations with people who are not yes men and yes women.
Yeah. But then people have off days, I do that. I can give a talk and go, well, that was really good. And then think, but I can't remember what I did, or what was that? What was so good about that talk? What was it that made it better? Was it me? Was it the audience? So, we're human beings. Human beings by nature are fallible. We're not robots. And so sometimes you can produce great work and sometimes not. And it's more than the flow state. It's, who are you working with? Who are you working for? Sometimes you can see it's rather like a teacher. You can get genius out of a class one day and not the next day.
Marisa, there's certain questions that I have just for you.
Okay.
I don't even know if these will make it to the
Well,
podcast, but
ask them.
perhaps they will.
Okay.
I think you're deeply intuitive as a person.
Yeah, I'm very intuitive.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I feel, and this is not just an outcome of your job. I think there's something inherently
But
intuitive.
intuition too, the more you use it, the more intuitive you are. So it's a good thing. And as a therapist, you will often have intuition about people, and that's a good thing.
So are you in a place in life where if you actually look at someone without having a conversation with them, you still get to know something about them?
Yeah, most of the time. Most of the time, yes.
Body language?
Body language, the energy that's coming off that person. We all have our own energetic field, and quantum physics is talking about someone else's energetic body and their vibrations. And so we can pick that up. You have to tune into it.
Do you enjoy that aspect of living?
Yes, but I also can turn it off.
Consciously?
Well, if I was on a plane, I didn't want to talk to anybody. If I was, occasionally I'll go somewhere. If I was on, let's say I was on a boat trip and I just wanted to sit and watch the dolphins, I didn't want to have a conversation with other people on the boat, then I can just learn to tune out. And
you've hypnotized so many people for the sake of your work.
Yeah.
Is everyone effectively the same on the inside?
No, but we all have the same problems. We're all very different, but all human beings have the same problems.
Which are self-doubt.
Not feeling good enough. There's so many ways to not feel enough. Not feeling good enough, worthy enough, interesting enough, qualified enough, attractive enough, you name it. Feeling disconnected and believing that what they want it, but they're not going to get it.
So you kind of have a bit of a template in your head.
I have a
healer.
template, yeah.
Which one of the cases is
this?
this?
Yeah, exactly. Who needs what?
I find podcasting difficult sometimes because there's a huge energy exchange.
Yeah, of course, a huge energy, yeah.
How do you feel at this stage of life? You're one of the most celebrated therapists in the world.
I always think of myself as well known, but not famous. I think I'm well known for what I do because I'm good at what I do, but I'm good at what I do because that's what I was always meant to do. There's lots of things I'm not good at. So I feel gardening, IT, understanding a lot of technology. There's so many things that I don't even understand that. But I believe you're only meant to be good at one thing. I think the joy in life comes in. This is my gift. I don't have to have any other gift. Imagine if we're all good at everything. We'd never have a dressmaker, a gardener. We'd never go out for dinner. We'd never employ a plumber or an electrician because I can do everything. You're supposed to be good at one thing and let other people be good at their thing. So I do. I love my life because I make a difference. I wake up and I can help people. And, people don't fear dying. They fear dying, not having had an impact, living a life without meaning and purpose. So I would say, without wanting to sound arrogant at all, but my life has had meaning and purpose. Yeah. And I've impacted a lot of unhappy children and women who couldn't have babies and now have, people who couldn't find love and now have. So that's a nice thing. If ever I had a bad day, I'd go in my office. I'd look at all the baby pictures and I'd think, wow, all those babies came into the planet because I helped the parent. Wasn't entirely down to me. I played a part. So I'd look at letters. And so that's nice. So I'm very happy that I had a career that gave me so much. And then I have a lot of love. I have a great husband, a wonderful daughter, an amazing son-in-law, great sister, nieces, nephews, beautiful little grandson. So I feel very lucky that I have that triangle. I have a career that matters. I have a lot of love in my life. Then I have something just for me.
Would he be comfortable coming on screen?
Maybe.
Are you comfortable being on screen? Can I request you to sit here? We do this segment on if you're comfortable with it.
Yeah, sure. I'm always comfortable with my husband sitting in the same room.
That's good.
How are you, good sir?
I'm absolutely in the right place at the right time. Nothing could be better.
One of the great joys of my day today was seeing the two of you together. Like there's something very warm you both emit as a couple collectively. So my question to you is, what is it like being her husband?
That's a beautiful girl, and I'm just very blessed to have her.
Yeah.
So that's it. We gel together. We make each other laugh.
Do you think you've healed more as a man because of being her husband?
The best way to frame that is I've got an understanding wife who happens to be a therapist, not a therapeutic wife. Yeah.
Could you break down that sentence a little more?
Well, you know, you've got to be very careful when you're a therapist not to therapize your husband or wife or children. So I have to be careful not to do therapy on people who don't necessarily want that. You know, women are very good at trying to fix men, but really you have to realize that I fell in love with a flawed person fell in love with me. It's the best you can ever be in life is a flawed person having flawed relationship with a flawed people. It's called being flawsome. But trying to fix someone or change someone, you know, again, I don't want to really take being a therapist home either. So he's right. He has a wife who happens to be a therapist, but I'm not doing therapy with him every day. Occasionally, but not often.
I'll be a broken project for a very long time.
I mean, you emit a lot of happiness.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to talk to you about there as well.
Yeah.
I have a very direct question for you.
You can ask it. Ask me anything.
Anything you wish.
Why did you choose him?
I chose John for many reasons. He's very funny, and I think funny is a wonderful thing in a marriage. He's immensely kind, and kindness is so underrated. He's deeply, deeply intelligent. I knew he would never bore me because he's funny, intelligent, and kind. And you know, we're very lucky because we created our TT together. It's not my business, it's our business. I do the therapy, John does the marketing. So, you know, I couldn't do his job and he couldn't do my job. So we work very well. We're sort of a perfect storm, if you like. And I feel very grateful to have John because he's very good to me and for me. And I think, again, gratitude is such an important thing to have. It's every time he annoys me, which is not that often. I imagine my life without him and it's so much worse. So.
What's the biggest thing you've learned from her?
How to fall in love with somebody.
Ooh.
That's it. That'll do.
Like how to completely give yourself to another person?
I don't think you do give yourself. I think you turn up and you stay individual. You stay whole. Marisa says something, I know she doesn't support this, twin flame. No, we're individual, flawed people making the very, very best of each other who happen to be passionately in love.
Do you two ever speak about the human mind?
Yeah. And we broadly, in the Venn diagram of our beliefs, they overlap a lot. And where they don't, they don't. You know, that's fine too. We don't need to win. You don't need to win. You just need to be viscerally independent and happy yourself. It's not, I mean, I'm borrowing your lines, darling. It's not up to Marisa to make me happy.
So I think that's in a marriage. You do, like he does a lot for me. He does all the cooking, all the shopping, makes me tea every morning.
Someone's got to cook.
Yeah. So he does a lot for me.
And I'm a outstandingly
and he
good
loves
cook.
it. That's his gift. So he allows me to, like, if I'm writing a book or working, John does so many things to make my life easier. I think that's a great thing about a marriage. And you go, wow, this person makes my life easier and better than it ever could be if they weren't in it. That's the thing. And part of that is doing for each other.
It's one of the keys to a great marriage, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for being on screen.
It's a pleasure.
I have a few last questions for your lady love.
Simple question for you. How do we gain what you have in life in terms of what you and John share?
Do you know, I think in a marriage, you really need three things. You must have best friend chemistry. That's very important. You must have sexual chemistry. That's very important. And you must really admire and respect the other person. And a lot of people have sexual chemistry, but that's it. And some people have best friend chemistry. But you've got to have three things. You also have to learn to pick your battles because you're bound to argue. So some things aren't, you know, I always think of it as three things. So when I married my husband, I have needs that are non-negotiable. One of them, I need to know where he is. So if he's out and I can't reach him on the phone or he's late, I would always want him to call me. So that would be one. That would be a non-negotiable need. But a lot of us say, well, you've got to meet all my needs. So John can't meet all my needs and I can't meet all his needs. So I have needs he must meet. I have needs I think, that need's not important. Let's just give that need. And other needs, I think, well, I can meet that need myself. So that's the thing with needs. Put them into three buckets. This one has to be met at all costs, like honesty and truth and faithfulness and kindness. But there's another need that, should I just give that need up? The need to have a perfect kitchen, for instance. And then the third need, maybe I need, I could meet that need myself. So maybe if I said he needs to entertain me every night, because I can entertain myself occasionally. So look at your needs. You're never going to get one person to meet all your needs ever. So you've got to give some up, fix some yourself, and then give your partner the ones that are non-negotiable. Then you'll have a much happier relationship.
And I'd probably twist the same question and ask you this from the perspective of a single person.
Yeah. Okay.
Someone who's looking for love. Like, honestly, I think everyone wants what John and you share.
Yeah. Yeah.
This understanding.
Yeah, but you see, our love is not is based on something real. It's not based on what we look like. It's based on how do we feel. We talk a lot about funny. John is very funny. He makes me laugh a lot. He's very kind. He's very intelligent. So these are all feelings, not looks. Obviously, I want someone who looks just like that, and they got to have that kind of job, and they got to make that kind of money and drive that kind of car, and that's all very superficial. If you're going to be with someone a long time, you forget what they look like very quickly, but you'll never forget what they feel like or how they make you feel. So women and men get it all wrong when they go, how much hair have you got? I mean, have you got a six-pack? But, you're probably going to have children together and get old together. So that's not the right question. The question is, how does this person make me feel? How do I feel about them? So you always want to go to feeling questions, not looks or money questions. What car do they drive? That's a silly question. What kind of watch do they wear?
You may forget how they look, but you'll never forget how they feel.
No, of course, and that's the nicest thing. Curling up to someone, waking up to someone in the morning, coming home to someone, getting off a plane and someone is there. I mean, that intimacy is really that wrapping yourself around someone in bed at night and the lights are off, so you don't even know what they look like, but you know what they feel like. They feel warm and comforting.
Marisa Peer, thank you. This was it.
Oh, thank you.
Great first conversation with you. Something tells me that we'll speak again as the years move forward. Thank you for everything you've done for human society in general, all over the globe.
Oh, thank you. It's been an honor.
I honestly assume that a lot of people thank you for your work.
They do.
But
I never get tired of hearing it.
Here's a big, heavy global thank you. I hope that your heart also feels loved by everyone that you've helped all over the world, even more than the love that you already feel at this point. Because in my eyes, and I'm not a therapist by any means, I've not even studied psychology, I've studied electronics and telecommunication engineering, but I've done a lot of podcasts and I understand human beings.
Good.
I think there's a part of you that's so observant and so intuitive and so true to your craft, which is all about helping other people, that, and pardon me for saying this, I feel you have learned how to receive in life, but there's still a part of you that restricts yourself from completely receiving. So I hope that my compliment and my gratitude can, move that 1% further in helping you receive even more. You're
thank you.
a gem of a human being, and I hope that the universe keeps giving you more of whatever you desire.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a wonderful honor, and
thank you.
I'll learn to receive even more. Thank you.
No, thank you, Marisa. Really appreciate your presence and really appreciate your knowledge.
Well, thank you so much. It's been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was the episode for today, ladies and gentlemen. Honestly, when it comes to these global podcasts that we've begun on TRS, I'm still trying to understand what you as the audience enjoy about the global content. This is how our whole year is going to look. We're going to talk a lot more about growth. We're going to have a lot of in-depth conversations. So I'd love to read your feedback. Please drop your feedback in the comment section down below. Lots of practical content, lots of content with actionables. Send in your guest suggestions. We're going to be traveling a lot for the sake of the show. So, irrespective of the geographical locations, who's some of the guests that you'd like to see on TRS? Please let us know. Send in your recommendations on our Instagram pages and in our comment section down below.